through the House.
The Honourable Nanaia Mahuta.
Mr Speaker, the contribution of David Bennett before me raised a very important point around the issue of capping of student numbers, and he did put a fine point on the fact that, yes, the Labour Party did do it, but you have to understand the context of the time. When Labour was in government, significant tertiary reforms were needed, and at that time, unemployment was sitting at around about 3.2% from memory. So we didn't have high unemployment, we had low unemployment, and we needed a skilled workforce, and we needed a tertiary sector that was better aligned and specialising in areas that aligned to labour market needs. Now that's the context that that member failed to comment on. So when we're talking about the challenge ahead of this country to reduce student debt, by the same measure, we need, in times of a recession, to lift the skills of our people. And we can only do that by investing in our people and sending the right signals to say, in a time of recession, now is the time to upskill so that we can ensure that productivity can be increased, so that we have a high-skilled workforce to be able to meet the demands of the new economic challenges. Right. Well, at least that's the vision that Labour sees, and we see that as a very serious challenge that is only partially understood by National but not fully embraced, because the signal that National is sending indeed is that they want to reduce student debt, they want to continue to put caps on tertiary education at a time when we should be lifting them, and they're wanting to limit the numbers of people who can actually access student loans to get a higher education. All the signals are in the wrong place. Mr Speaker, we will be supporting this bill because we do believe that efficiencies can be gained in terms of reducing the student loan debt. However, there needs to be incentives. A regulatory measure in itself will not do a great deal to send important signals to our people that by reducing their student loan debt and by ensuring that the student loan scheme continues to be available to them, that they can continue to upskill and increase their skill set to become more productive in an economy that should be thriving if the National Government had a plan. But under Labour, there is hope. Under Labour, there is hope. I want to pick up on some of the comments that were raised by speakers before me. And firstly, that was the reduction in the student loan holiday. And the one question that I had, and I'm not a member on the Select Committee, is why the arbitrary rationale in terms of reducing the student holiday from 3 years to 1? Because if you look at the overseas, the bilateral agreements that New Zealand have with other countries in terms of working holidays, they all exist for around about a 2-year period. So even then, your common sense would say, well, if the working holiday schemes exist for 2 years, the holiday period should be for 2 years, and it would align. That way you're sending signals to those young people who want to have their OE experience, maximising on our bilateral partnerships with other countries to say, yeah, look, have the holiday for a 2-year period, and, you know, get a job, and if you can, and repay. But the signals are all in the wrong direction, and there is no strong rationale for the reduction in the repayment holiday. And I think some very important questions were raised in this House that should come out in committee stages and be answered by the Minister around the rationale for the reduction. The other point that I wanted to comment on is the profile of those people who have access to student loans, and looking at how a flexibility type of arrangement might be a greater incentive to mature people going back into study, to mums and women going back into study who will want to ensure that they do meet their debt obligations, want to earn a track record, but also want some flexibility around just some everyday life challenges that come up. I think if you take that kind of an approach in working with people and being more responsive to their life context and challenges, then I think we've got a fully functioning student loan scheme which is operating on a high trust basis, on an incentive basis, and on a basis where people are actually saying, look, It's good to continue to make repayments. I can earn a track record here with IRD. There will be an opportunity in the future to continue to take up student loans should I wish to upskill in the future. And those are all very real questions when people start to consider whether or not to go back into a tertiary institution to upskill and get a qualification. They're all very real considerations that I think underpin a broader context for considering the New Zealand Student Loan Scheme. Mr. Speaker, there were other comments made by speakers before me around the lack of the government's changes and the way in which they are restricting those over 55 years old, new migrants and part-time students to the student loan scheme. And again, the signals are all in the wrong place here. What we need more than ever before is we need an ageing workforce to continue to ensure that their skills are relevant to the new workforce labour market demands. And we can only assure them that if they have pathways into higher education. And for a lot of people, especially a lot of mature people that I certainly come across, who have a family and who have to weigh up the cost of taking up tertiary education with looking after their family, student loans sometimes becomes an option where they can manage with maybe their partner who is working part-time and then they go back to study. So I think people can't simply shake their head and say, oh no, that's not a reality, because it is a reality for many. And I think the needs of upskilling young people are just as important as upskilling a maturing workforce who actually can continue to work at 50, 55 if they are upskilling and transitioning perhaps to a new career pathway through a supportive loan scheme. Mr. Speaker, there are a lot more questions here to be asked, and a dearth of responses from the government on some very fundamental challenges that certainly Labor set them, which is, in a time of a recession, we should be sending signals to New Zealanders to say, you matter, and we want to invest in ensuring that you have access to improve your skill set, to be a part of a productive economy and a labour market that will be able to ensure that there is a place for them. And again, Mr. Speaker, the thing that I'm most concerned about in the contribution from the government today is that this is all just about reducing debt. Well, if it is all just about reducing debt, then you can tick the box on this bill. But it has to be about people at the end of the day. And if we're not serious about investing in people, lifting their skills so that they continue to be a part of a productive economy, all the signals are in the wrong place, and we're certainly not going in the right direction. Mr. Speaker, we do support efficiencies in this student loans scheme amendment bill, but we have concerns, and we want to raise them so that during the committee stages of the bill, those questions can be responded to by the Minister. Kia ora.
I call Todd McLeay.
It gives me pleasure to rise to speak on this bill, the Student Loan Scheme Amendment Bill. In the